Hey guys, what's going on? It's Obes, back again with another video, and this week we're going to be looking at my top 5 tips on how to get more wins in FUT Champs. Now before we start, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for the support on last week's video. Did really well, much better than anything I was expecting, so if we could keep it up that'd be absolutely great. But yeah, let's get right into it, carrying on the trend of how to get more wins in Weekend League. Okay, so jumping into the first tip, and this is all going to be about avoiding losing streaks. Now this sort of branches out into two, the first of which being, I would say, if you've lost 2 games in a row, you really should stop playing for some time. Take a break, whether that be an hour or a few hours or what, just take some time off to cool off. Because if you get into the habit of playing poorly and you're getting more and more frustrated with the game, it's only going to go in one direction. So my rule of thumb is, if I've lost 2 games in a row, I stop for an hour, come back to it later with a fresh mindset and can get going again. The second tip I have on this same topic is to spread out your games across the weekend as much as possible. So I aim to try and play roughly 10 games a day, because again, when that tiredness comes in, you start to lose concentration if you've played too many games in a single day. You're going to start struggling, you're going to start making really silly mistakes, and it's all down to the fact that you've just lost concentration because your mind is tired. Definitely spread your games out if you can. I appreciate some people work and things like that, so it's difficult, but if you can, spread them out as much as possible, and you'll be able to compete at the highest level of your game across the entire weekend. I completely appreciate how frustrating FIFA can be at times, but yeah, I definitely say if you've lost 2 in a row, you need to stop. Take some time off, because you're only going to get frustrated, start making more mistakes, get even more frustrated, and it's a vicious cycle, and before long, you've wasted sort of 5 of your games. If you only get 30 on a FUT Champs weekend, you wasted 5 of them, because you got frustrated and you just kept going into games, getting angry with yourself, and before you know it, you're running out of games. So definitely take that break and make sure you're ready going into each game with the right mindset, feeling positive, feeling good. I know it's easier said than done, but yeah, definitely making a break after each 2 games that you've lost is my top tip. Moving on to my second tip now, and this links into last week's video about custom tactics. I'll put a link in the description and on the screen now. It's to have a plan B. And by that I mean, always have at least 2 sets of tactics going into a game that you can switch between depending on how the game is going. I won't go into detail about my own tactics because that was last week's video and you can check that out if you want, guys. But yeah, I always have a defensive tactic and an attacking tactic, and I know that in certain games, in certain situations, when I need to switch between the 2, I'm prepared to do so. I think it's really important to have this option, because if you're completely one-dimensional and that isn't working, then you're going to lose the game because the teammates figured you out. You need to be versatile, you need to change your game based on the other player and based on how the game is going. So yeah, at least 2 different types of custom tactics going into a weekend, so you can adapt to the game, adapt to the opposition, and figure out the best way of achieving the victory. The more you do this, the better you'll get at it in terms of reading the game and knowing when to change between tactics, but it's definitely something I would start doing as early as possible. You'll get better at it, and before you know, you'll be adapting to the games constantly, and it'll become completely second nature to you. You'll be flicking through without even realising you're doing it, and making sure that you're getting those wins when otherwise you might have lost because they figured you out. As I said, if you do want to check out my tactics, they're on last week's video. I'll leave a link in the description and above. But yeah, definitely go in with more than 1 set of tactics. My third tip, and I know this is going to be difficult for a lot of you, it certainly is for me, is don't rage quit. There is method to this, I'm not crazy, and I appreciate that if you're like 9-0 down in the 30th minute, you don't want to stay there and play. And this is hotly disputed about how form works on Weekend League, but it has been confirmed that rage quitting a game doesn't affect your form. So if I'm on, say, +4 form and I rage quit, I'm going to be on +4 form going into the next game. Whereas if you just carry on playing and you do lose, then you're going to be on +3, so your next game will be easier, theoretically. So it's definitely a good idea not to rage quit. And I'd also say the amount of games where I've got back into games, even after being 3-0, 4-0 down, just by persevering and keep going at the opponent, you'd be surprised. So there's always a chance to get back in the game, but especially I would say if you're in the second half and you're losing, you're getting frustrated, try your best not to rage quit, because in the long run it will help you. As I said, the next opponent should be easier if you don't rage quit, whereas if you do, you're probably going to match a player of the similar skill level that's just battered you and made you want to rage quit. As I said, I appreciate it is really difficult at times. I get as frustrated as any one of you and really just want to stop playing and throw my PlayStation out the window. But yeah, try not to rage quit, try and see games out. And as I said, it will benefit you. Over the course of the weekend, that could be an extra 2 wins if you're playing easier opponents, at least. It could be the difference between, Gold 1 and Elite 3, for example. So yeah, do your best to persevere and stick with it. My 4th tip, and I think this is one that I haven't really seen be picked up on, but I think is really important, especially to how I play the game, is to know your team. And by that I mean, don't be going into a weekend league with a completely fresh team, or even completely fresh more than 1 or 2 players. And by fresh I mean players that you've not used before. You definitely need time to get used to your team, so make sure you're playing at least a good few games in Rivals. I'd say you need more than 10 games to understand what a player can do and what a team can do, figure out your tactics and stuff, because I know so many people who just sell their team and create a new one going into a weekend league, and then 5-6 games in they decide they don't like it, sell that team and do exactly the same mistake again. So definitely don't be going into a weekend with a completely fresh team that you haven't used before, or a number of new players. And also do your best to stick with it once you have started. Don't go changing your team halfway through a weekend, because you're only going to just do exactly the same thing again. It's much better just to stick with the team and get to know it, and you'll pick up wins because you know how to use those players as you get to know them, than it is to completely sell your team and completely change it halfway through. I appreciate, obviously, if things are going really, really bad, then you're going to be thinking, right, I need to stop this. But if you've got time, make the new team and then play a couple of games in Rivals and just make sure they're what you're after. Don't be wasting FUT Champs games on players you're unsure about, on teams and tactics that you're unsure about. You need to make sure you know that team, those tactics and those players absolutely inside out, so that you know you're comfortable with what players can and can't do. For example, Martial, let's take him for an example, because he's the striker I've been using in my team. It's taken me some time to get to know what his abilities are, what he can do, what he can't do. I know that he's great in behind finishing. I also know that his passing really isn't that great. If I didn't know that going into a weekend, I'd be losing the ball from trying to pass with him too much. I wouldn't be having on getting behind and knowing that that's what he does well. So you need to know these things going into a weekend about every single one of the players that you're using. I know it can be tough, but it's really important and will make a difference. My 5th and final tip for getting more wins on Weekend League is to take each game as it comes. And what I mean by that is try not to look at the bigger picture too much. I've got inside my head and ruined games for myself so many times because I've thought, I need 4 wins out of the last 6 to hit Elite. And because I'm thinking like that, it stresses me out more and I play far worse than if I just thought, right, let's just go into this game, let's try and pick up a win, see what happens. You will definitely perform better across the weekend if you just take each game as it comes and just try and win each individual game, rather than thinking about what you need to get to the whatever level you want. Thinking like that is just going to you're going to be thinking like, oh my god, if I don't win this game, I've only got one more chance to win. That's not going to be the way to go about it, because you're just going to stress yourself out more. Just play, see what you get. I know it's good to have aspirations and think, right, this weekend I want to get Elite 3. But at the end of the day, you're only going to get what you're going to get. There's no point beating yourself up or worrying about how many wins you're going to end up on. Just take each game as it comes, and more than likely you will hit the targets you want. Okay guys, so that was my 5 tips to pick up more wins on Weekend League. We had avoid losing streaks, have a plan B, don't rage quit, know your team, and take each game as it comes. I hope you enjoyed the video guys. As always, please leave a like and subscribe if you did. Again, thank you so much for the support on the last video. And yeah, have a great day. Peace.